Right then, let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 39 of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football Podcast, powered by MK Battery. A huge thank you, as always, to MK Battery for powering this podcast and every National League live stream. And our continued thanks to Slater and Gordon, title sponsors of the National League for 25-26, for helping elevate both divisions and providing real backing to the sport. And of course to Swizzles, who continue to celebrate the standout performances and unsung heroes across every game week. Today's episode is all about the Slater and Gordon Championship, our full game week 2 recap. And what a weekend it was. High quality matches, big turning points, and a table that's already taken shape. My name is Ryan Sipple, and joining me today are two players who are right at the heart of the action. Manchester United's David D, back on the podcast for a third time. David, how are you feeling after another intense championship weekend?
Ryan, I'm absolutely shattered. I can't say how tired I am. It was a really demanding weekend with the fixtures that we had, and we'll get onto it later, of course, but I think we coped reasonably well with the fixtures that we had.
Yeah, it's probably a good job that this is just audio form, this podcast, and not video, because we both look like zombies after a incredibly busy, intense weekend. But also making his debut on the podcast is Altrincham PSC's Mason Davies, who not only competed in Gameweek 1, but joined me on commentary for the very first time. Mace, how are you?
Hi, Ryan. I'm very good. I'm obviously tired like you guys as well, off the back of another 5-game weekend, 2 in a row. Very tiring. And I think we've done pretty well, as I'll move on to.
I'm not sure you should be as tired as myself and David, because you did spend some of the weekend suspended. So, you've been afforded a little bit more of a rest than us two. No comment. Probably for the best. Yeah. Now, alongside the league action, we also carried out the draw for the preliminary round 1 and round 2 stages of the John Good Group WFA Cup last Friday. So all regional league and championship clubs now know their routes. Just a quick word on the draw itself. Travelled up to Hull on Friday to the head offices of John Good Group. And once again, I have to say how incredible they are as sponsors. Their commitment to the sport, I cannot shout about enough. And we cannot wait to share more about the plans, the innovations, and the developments that they're completely leading on for both the Cup and the newly introduced John Good Group WFA Vars. So it's worth touching on that updated format just quickly. We'll dedicate a full episode to it in the future. But in a nutshell, the Cup will continue as it always has, but now concludes at Derby Arena on Sunday, the 26th of April, with the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the final all taking place on the same day, a full showcase event under one roof. As part of the FA Disability Cup, the Powerchair final will also feature something new, a match between the Cup winners and the Premiership League winners. And if it's the same club, the runners-up in the league will step in, a kind of Community Shield style fixture to crown the season. And now running alongside the Cup is the John Good Group WFA Vars, introduced to give non-Premiership clubs a pathway to silverware. Any team eliminated in the preliminary round 1 or round 2 stages will come together on Saturday, the 7th of February at the University of Nottingham for a full qualifying day. It's a really intriguing format. It's fast-paced, 30-minute knockout matches with 4 teams progressing to the semi-finals and final, which will also take place at the Derby Arena the same day as the Cup finals. Mace, let's start with you. Altrincham drew Leeds Dynamos in the hat, a really competitive fixture, and whoever comes through that will meet Nottingham Forest, who secured a bye in round 1. How are you feeling about that route?
It's going to be challenging, definitely. Leeds, I'm not the most looking forward to playing. They're a very good team, very well structured, and again, Nottingham, they're always a challenge. They always have been for me anyway, and I just really am happy about that we're in it, but not really looking forward to some of the matches because they're going to be tough matches.
Yeah, I think Leeds Dynamos particularly are one of the toughest teams in the Championship division and the Cup competition at the moment. They're so hard to break down. David, Manchester United, more favourable draw. Lancashire Spitfires, one of 3 regional league sides in the competition, certainly in the northern region. And if you progress, it's either Middlesbrough Academy or Hull and East Yorkshire in round 2. That's potentially a very positive route in comparison to Mason's. How do you feel about your side of the draw and the opportunity?
I think that the draw for us in the Cup couldn't really have got much better, to be honest. We've been drawn a regional league side, which obviously they're going to be a challenge to us, like every team is, but they're a bit of an unknown quantity. We don't really know what to expect from them, but obviously we'll be going into that game as favourites to win. When it comes to the second round draw, say if we beat Lancashire Spitfires, it's either facing another regional league team or a championship side at the bottom of the table, which is very favourable to us. As say, for example, if we face Hull, we beat them 4-0 earlier this season, which means that we'd be obviously again favourites to go into and win that game. The only downside I think that we've had with our favourable draws is that say hypothetically we get through to round 3, we will be completely avoiding the Vars. And if we get an unfavourable draw in round 3, say if we get like Teesside, Greenbank, Leeds, etc., we could be exiting the competition with no real spotlight on our performances and no real silverware to compete for.
It's really challenging, isn't it? That will leave you kind of in limbo. You won't be eligible for the Vars, but you won't reach the Derby Arena, that big showcase day where everyone comes together. So I can understand that internal dilemma. Having spoken to you and the squad at the weekend, it's a case of you're absolutely going to go for the Cup. You're almost going to disregard the Vars if it happens to materialise in a way where you're out of the Cup competition and you are eligible for the Vars, then you go for that. But whilst there is a prize of the John Good Group WFA Cup, you will absolutely fight for that. It's fascinating. As I said, we'll create and dedicate a whole episode to the new format to talk about the new trophy, which I'm sure you've seen, David and Mason, is absolutely sensational, and there's a story behind that to be told, and the role that Good Group are playing in propping up our domestic cup competition. Let's get into the recap. Before we do, I just want to shout out someone who never gets enough credit, Jeff Lewis. Not only is he one of the world's leading official, not just England's world leading officials, he's also the mind behind so many of the stats and details we share on this podcast. A lot of the records, the streaks and the insights you hear on here exist because Jeff has tracked them, he's verified them and kept the history of the sport alive in the most meticulous way. We've actually got an episode planned with him soon to focus on the stats around Powerchair Football, which I'm really looking forward to. So if there's anything you want to hear about more, please let me know. Jeff is the man who will definitely have the answers. Right then, as is always the case with these types of episodes, we'll go from 12th up until first, covering each side's results, performances, standout players and key moments, with the live table and stats up in front of us three. We'll also touch on the Swizzles Awards and the trends that could shape the championship race. In 12th place, we've got Hull and East Yorkshire. And I think it's fair to say it was another incredibly tough weekend for them. coming into game week 2, they were still searching for their first point, their first goal, and momentum as a whole. And it just didn't seem to go their way. There was some signs of growth that shouldn't be overlooked, but for the most part, it was an incredibly challenging game week 2. David, give me your assessments for Hull and East Yorkshire.
It's just very difficult to be in a situation like Hull. I've been there before. I think most championship players have been there before, when you're fighting just to even get a goal, even to get a point, even to get just something out of the game. And it's such a difficult position to be in when you're trying so hard and you're the bottom of the league, and all you need is something to grab a hold of and gain a bit of confidence. However, there are positives, I believe, from this weekend. They did score their first goal of the campaign from Hodgson against Altrincham PFC, and they can take positives away from that. They know that they can now, at least, they have put the ball in the back of the net once so far this season, and it's a building block to grow on. This season, no doubt, is going to be really challenging for them. They're still, in my opinion, haven't really recovered from that Cole Simpson loss a couple of seasons ago, and with them missing Kai Gill this weekend, that would really hurt them to keep playing for them. And I think once they can go, they've got a couple months now until game week 3. They've got about 3 or 4 months until game week 3. It's almost like, I imagine it like a new season, a new beginning, a new start, to be able to play all the teams again and see how you can do. Just all they need is a bit of confidence and progress in their game to be able to play better.
Yeah, I don't disagree. They opened up against Norwich City, and considering what they were able to do in game week 1, you would have thought it would have been a fairly comprehensive performance from Norwich City. But for Hull and East Yorkshire, it was really promising to begin with. Norwich are pushing right towards the top of the table. They're chasing automatic promotion. Hull were organised, they were compact, they were well structured. It finished only 1-0. And at that stage, I was thinking maybe they've turned a corner. Maybe they're going to really push on in game week 2 and put the results from game week 1 behind them. But Saturday, the difficulties continue to hit. As you've already mentioned, they were plagued by some absences from key players, Luke Brennan and Kai Gill, which really restricted them in terms of tactics, in terms of setup, because of the classification of certain players. And it meant younger, less experienced players like Callum Jefferson, like Harrison Smith, had to take on far more responsibility than usual. And across a 5-game weekend, that makes a huge difference. And then, of course, came Villa, Rockets, Lions, who will certainly talk about in more detail later. But a team that's absolutely flying, and it finished 5-0. The next fixture against Manchester City looked on paper like their best opportunity to get something from the weekend. But City were sensational. It's the best I've ever seen them in the National League stage, and they controlled the match. They took the game to Hull and East Yorkshire, and they won 4-0. And you could really see Hull's frustration creeping in. Mason, you played them in game week 2. Give me your assessments.
Yeah, obviously they're struggling. They're a struggle team. They're low down in the table. They're struggling to obviously score goals. They scored the first against us. But besides that, really, when you're playing them, obviously the missing of 2 of the key players doesn't help anyone. If we were to miss 2 of our key players, it wouldn't help us either. Same for every team, that. And it really is quite like such an unlucky circumstance to be in when you're missing your 2 of your key players, and then you have a 5-game weekend, a tiring weekend. Your young players have to play more. It's not really what you want, but I think for the games that they had to score the first goals of the season, which is a big step up for them, they kept a close game against Norwich, as you've already gone over. And I think they done pretty well for what they had.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The games that you would expect them to be more competitive in, they were better. I mean, that it was a very narrow 2-1 defeat to GW2 Saracens, one in which that they could and should have potentially got at minimum a point from. It was one where they went 1-0 up as well. So there's a lot for them to take home from game week 2. And even with a depleted squad and the classification challenges, there was still structure. There was still heart and flashes of what they're capable of. I think the partnership with Joel Rothery and Aston Walls is something to build around. Aston Walls is a very physical player, and that you can see is a real asset to the wider squad. And the younger players would have gained a lot of experience with the valuable minutes they've got. Something we will touch on across this episode is there is a very long break now for the National League Championship, over 3 months. And it's so important that all of our 12 teams, no matter what you're fighting for, are using that time productively, whether that's training, whether that's regional leagues, whether that's cup competitions, to ensure that come game week 3 in February, you are as sharp as possible. For Hull and East Yorkshire, they've got a favourable WFA Cup fixture to occupy them. They'll travel to Middlesbrough Academy in round 1, and if they progress, they'll face either Lancashire Spitfires or Manchester United, yourself, David. So there's competitive football coming, and it's something to keep them engaged and moving forward. If we're looking at game week 3 in the Championship, tough. West Bromwich Albion, Baggies, Teesside Steel, Manchester United and Nottingham Forest. So it's all about how they use that 3-month break to reset, and hopefully with a fuller squad available, they will be able to push on. Next in the standings, in 10th, we have Nottingham Forest. And while the table shows just 3 points from their opening 9 games, the performances tell a much more encouraging story. This is a team developing every single weekend. You can clearly see progress in their structure, in their decision making, in their confidence, both individually and collectively. Saturday on paper was incredibly tough. Leeds Dynamos and Nottinghamshire, 2 sides you'd expect to be right in that promotion picture. Yet Forest were competitive in both, losing 1-0 and 2-0 respectively. They kept things compact, they stayed disciplined and limited 2 of the league's strongest attacking teams. And considering Nottinghamshire came into the weekend scoring at will, Forest handled the pressure well and remained organised throughout. Mason, give me your assessment on Nottingham Forest from game week 2.
I think they've done very well. They've definitely grown. And against Leeds, they kept it right to the wire. And they done very well in that game to keep it like that. In the Nottingham derby, I think they held on against such a physical side. They very much did hold on. 2-0 against them is very good. We've got beat 3-0 by them, which is very, very difficult to play against them. Moving on Sunday, they had 3 games, which is difficult for a Sunday. And the Villa game isn't really what you want to start with early on a Sunday, really, is it? And losing 5-0 doesn't give you much confidence. And they went in, and after that game, they went into City, kept it close, 2-1. Done very well against City, because I think this is City's best weekend, which we'll move on to later. And then Baggies 4-2 is unlucky, I would say. Baggies probably one of the best performances. So, yeah. Not much more to say, really.
Yeah, I think Sunday it did bring another 3 defeats, but context matters. Villa Lions are flying. Manchester City look the sharpest they have ever done at National League level, and West Bromwich Albion Baggies have found the form. So there was real positives. The confidence on the ball, the better transitions, the attacking threat that they showed in the final third is unlike anything they've been able to produce in seasons gone by. And that 4-2 defeat against Baggies, for example, showed that they can hurt teams when they click. They just need to stay switched on defensively. David, from your perspective, what impressed you about Forest in Game Week 2? You have to rate players like Ben Rodgers and Finlay Cooper has clearly developed significantly over the last 12, 18 months.
100%. I think Ben Rodgers is the heartbeat of that Forest squad. Whatever Forest do, whatever positive things they do, it goes through him. Really bright star. He can hit the ball really hard, and he can switch the play immediately from a defence to attack. Really, really fast. And it proves that this weekend, they proved that to themselves, I think, that they can actually hold their own, that they can hold a game against the top side, and then they can also score goals and be a big threat to other teams around them. I think the Villa game, especially, I don't think it's a fair representation of their weekend at all. Villa had probably the best weekend out of all the teams, I believe, this weekend, and unlucky to come up against them at such a good time for Villa. But when you look at the other results, I mean, only losing 1-0 to Leeds Dynamos, such a compact, solid team, and only losing 2-0 to their sister club Nottinghamshire, who have basically hammered most teams that they've faced. And I think the scoring goals, again, taking the lead against Man City, who, as Basin correctly said, were one of the standout teams of the weekend and got voted team of the weekend, and to go ahead against them, even though they may not have won the match, it's positives that you can take. And Baggies, them having also a brilliant weekend, scoring 2 goals against them, it's really impressive. And I just think they're a bit unfortunate the time that they face their opponents in the season. But the next 3 months, I'm sure they'll be working and training how they can pick up more points, get more wins, and hopefully survive.
Yeah, what I really like about this Forest side is they're clearly learning and wanting to develop. They're competing, they're adapting, and they're starting to add layers to their game. And you can only really gauge that if you watch them. Obviously, as a commentator, I watch a lot of football. So even in these negative score lines, I can see trends, I can see developments, I can see positives. And that's absolutely the case with Nottingham Forest. This is night and day to what they were doing last season. Ben Rodgers does control so much of the rhythm through the middle, and his combinations, particularly with Finlay Cooper and Riley Priestley, are really encouraging. At times, they create these big triangles around the opposition, and they work the ball up the court, and they have attempts on goal. And there was many occasions in Game Week 2 where they created passing moves which ended in really good opportunities, and I was like, if that goes in, that's goal of the season. You don't, and that's what they need to extract from Game Week 2, from the losses, is the successes, because it's such fine margins. There's still, of course, a lot of work to do, but the trajectory is a positive one. And like Hull and East Yorkshire, with a 3-month break now before Game Week 3, they've got a valuable window to regroup, to reset and build. If we're looking at their fixtures, Saturday's ones are challenging. Leeds Dynamos and Manchester United, they probably won't be expecting to get a great deal from them. But Sunday presents a huge opportunity with matches against Hull and East Yorkshire, against GBG Saracens, both close to them in the table. Take points from them, 4 or 6, and the whole picture can shift. They're close. The margins are small. And if they convert their improvements we're seeing into results, Forest can absolutely pull themselves away from the bottom end and build something strong for the second half of the season. I think if you offered them 10th or 9th now, they'd probably snap your hand off, because in the last 3 or 4 years, they've been drawn into that championship playoff. If their season ends in a position where they don't have to go through a playoff to earn their right to compete in the 26-27 season, for me, that's surely seen as a positive. Don't you think, David?
100%. I remember when I was a young player at Surrey United, and in my first season, we were drawn into a relegation playoff against Forest, and it feels like the aim for them would to be not to go through that again, because they've been through it so many times, and every single time they come back out and fight and stay up because they're better than the rest. Then no regional league team, in my opinion, will be better than Forest, and I think they will stay up even if they get into the playoff spot. I just think that what they need to do is they need to be calm, be reasonable, pick up points where you think, yeah, go on, we can get a point there, we can get 3 points there. It's like you're trying to survive. You pick up points when you know you can pick up points. And against the bigger teams, against your Nottinghamshires, against your Villas, you say, okay, right, we're going to experiment a bit here. We're going to see how it goes, because we know it's going to be a very difficult task to beat them. So you have to be reasonable and say, right, we're going to try and pick up points here, here, and here, and see where that leads us.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we progress, I just want to have a quick word to talk about Toby Maurice, who operated as Forest goalkeeper both in Game Week 1 and Game Week 2. And I think he's been the difference. I don't think it's a coincidence that their defensive shape and solidity has coincided his introduction into the team. I think he's a fantastic player that reads the game so well. He's so calm, he's so composed, and you can see that provides Ben Rodgers with somewhat of a foundation to build upon. So it's great to see him back, because I don't think he played last season. So there's positives and stuff, players and skill sets to build their squad around. Let's progress on to 10th place GBG Saracens, and I have to say they are genuinely one of my favourite sides to watch. Their energy, their support, the fans that travel with them, the numbers they pull on the streaming as well. It all adds to this incredible occasion every time they get out on the court. You can see that they're new to this level, but they're embracing every single moment of it. If we reference their results, Saturday was tough. A 3-1 defeat to Leeds Dynamos, a 4-1 loss to West Bromwich Albion Baggies, and then a narrow 1-0 loss to Altrincham. But even in those games, there were real positives. You can see John Dixon is working out his strongest combination, particularly with how Tommy Mickelson and Avery Bazinball rotate that central role. Both have quality, both bring something different, and both are learning the pace of the championship very quickly. You two are both players that are not only incredibly young, but have been trusted with the responsibility of playing in that central position. I'll start with you, Mace. How did you find that transition going from a wide player to this season being trusted with being that main player in the centre, doing everything for the team in both defence and attack?
It's very difficult at the start. When you first do it, it's like sort of taking on a brand. It's like, well, it is learning a new thing, and it's difficult. It takes quite a lot But if you're a fast learner, it's sort of like you won't take long to find out the positioning, but it's figuring out how to do the passes correctly and how to set up your chair, where to be defensively, that takes the longest. Once you've done that, you've just then got a platform to build on, improve with experience in your matches, and the further you go on, the better player you will be in the middle. It's a big step up, very different positions.
How have you found it, David? Talk to me about your experiences playing in the centre, because I look at players like Avery Basinball and Tommy Mickelson, and this is only their second ever National League weekend, but you can see that there's skills and there's quality, and they're holding their own against some of the best players in the division.
100% agree with that, Ryan. I think I love to see young players take responsibility for their team. Saracens are such a young squad. Their average age I don't know what it is, but it must be below 18. Because they're so young, but the inexperience is almost an advantage because they can learn. They're almost there. They've got no prior experience to learn. They've got no prior experience to base off. So whatever happens now is learning for them. They're learning every single time they play someone, and their ceilings for all of their players are stupidly high. They genuinely some players like Tommy Mickelson, Avery Basinball have genuinely, they will reach the top. It's just a question of when. Being that young and being that in control of the game and in control of the midfield at such a young age is so unbelievably impressive. I started playing Powerchair football when I was 9 years old, and these kids are playing at National League level when they're 9, 10 years old. To me, that blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. It astounds me that these players are coming into the top level and not looking out of place at all. They look like they've been playing at this division for many seasons. If we're going back to their results, Sunday is just where everything came together. Starting with a standout 2-0 win over Manchester City. Given City's defensive record this season, that's an exceptional result. And I remember highlighting it prior to kickoff. City, up until that point, had only conceded 7 goals in their 7 games, and they had played each of the division's top teams. That is ridiculous as a statement. In comparison, GBG Saracens had conceded 26 goals in their 7 games. So it was night and day. But what played out couldn't have been further from that. GBG Saracens looked confident. They looked compact. They capitalised on an uncharacteristic mistake from Jay Pixton to go 1-0 up. And then they just saw the game out like seasoned competitors. And that, for me, is what was so impressive. If that wasn't enough, they followed that up with a 2-1 win over Hull and East Yorkshire. 2 wins in one day and 2 games that showed their growing confidence and maturity. And it's so encouraging that this is only the beginning of their journey. Talk to me about some of their other players, Mason, because you played them in Gameweek 2. How was it?
Well, I didn't literally play them because I was off for the match due to a red card.
Apologies. You commentated alongside me for it. How did you find it?
It looked tough on the pitch. It did look tough. But their age and their average age, they're very dominant on the pitch. Strength-wise, they look very strong. And for me, it was a shame to miss out on that match because it probably my most, besides the derby with us and Manchester United, it was the game that I was looking forward most to the whole weekend, I'll be honest. And I really obviously was annoyed that I had to commentate instead of playing. But some of the players, like Fred Body, the way how he sort of just came up the court near the end, I was so impressed with it. Because it's showing that he can do it. And he's not afraid to do it. That honestly just makes it mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, on Fred Body, he was making his National League debut this weekend because he wasn't present in Game Week 1. He was absolutely outstanding. He was calm, he was composed. He has got fantastic distribution and looks completely unflustered by the step up. There were so many occasions where he had a free kick or a goal kick deep into his own half and could generate the power and the accuracy to just slot it down over the left or right channel for GBG Saracens. And they only didn't capitalise because the wingers weren't anticipating that level of service, that level of accuracy. If they start to cotton on to the fact that Fred Body is a brilliant distributor, they will ensure that their anticipation, their chair preparation is ready to capitalise in a positive way, and they will have a lot of success from that. Brilliant player. I've literally not long posted the fantasy team of the weekend, proudly sponsored by Swizzles, and Jack Ebanks featured as part of the substitute bench, and it wasn't just the quality he showed on the court, it was his leadership that you could see the younger players are drawing from. It was his first appearances for GBG Saracens. So congratulations to him. He's got a really nice chemistry and connection with his brother Aaron. Naturally, I've already spoken about Avery Basinball and Tommy Mickelson. The one thing that annoys me slightly is they're slightly hampered by classification. A large percentage of their players are PF2s, which means that Fred Body, Avery Basinball and Tommy Mickelson can't feature together on the same court at the same time, because you can only imagine what they could do as kind of a trio. And that's probably what plays into John Dixon's decision to rotate constantly to ensure that there's valuable minutes and experience in each of their squad members. I think Ollie Grafton deserves a mention too. Probably played the least amount of minutes across the squad, but took his goal against Manchester City beautifully. Sharp anticipation and readiness, and that will no doubt give him confidence in the coming weekend. What I love about them is progression. Each week, each match, each rotation, they learn something new. And whereas in Game Week 1, we saw them lose 9-0 and 5-0, I don't think that will happen again. I think they've learnt from it and they've got better. They're not far off clicking fully. And when they do, they trouble a lot of teams.
I also think in Game Week 1 as well, you could see they were improving. When we played them last game of Game Week 1, we only beat them 1-0. And that was from a quick set piece where we quickly played the ball. They weren't quite set and Josh Slack finished at the back stick. But to come off from a 9-0 defeat against one of the top sides in the division to then holding us 0-0 for a large majority of the game, it clearly shows progression and a willingness to learn and a willingness to want to say, okay, we can do that better, but how can we improve?
Yeah, completely. Looking ahead to Game Week 3, their fixtures are testing West Bromwich Albion Baggies, Teesside Steel and Manchester United, and then they face Nottingham Forest. But there's clearly an opportunity in that final game for them to get something out of the weekend. I think if they'll be looking for maybe 4, maybe 3 points. But I think if you ask most people to predict how the table will look come season's end, most people would assume that GBG Saracens will be clear of that kind of relegation scrap towards the bottom. Let's now progress on to Manchester City in 9th. And honestly, it was their best National League weekend ever. Not just in terms of points, but in terms of identity, belief, the way the squad is starting to mature. This was GBG Saracens. They were GBG Saracens, and they took their time. They've developed every week, every game, and now they're starting to see the fruit of their labours. I followed them closely over the last 2 seasons, and I think there's been a noticeable shift this year. They've gone from a raw, developing group into a far more solid, organised and confident side, and that's the key word, confident. Not only that, they're playing with intent now. They're not always sitting deep and absorbing pressure, hoping for moments. They're starting to attack games and really try to win. And that's the shift. The story of their weekend starts with that huge result against Villa Rockets Lions, 1-1 draw, which would have felt like a win. They were the only team able to get points from them all weekend. They defended incredibly bravely, stayed compact and took the chance when it arrived. Then came Nottinghamshire. And if you just look at those first 2 games on your piece of paper to start a weekend, you can understand if they really struggled psychologically to get themselves up for it, because they wouldn't have been expecting anything from them. But despite another 1-0 loss, it was no disgrace whatsoever. Nottinghamshire are ruthless, as we've already discussed. And that game could have gone any way. But they kept it competitive, they stayed disciplined and gave themselves a real platform to build from. And that platform allowed them to secure their biggest breakthrough at National League level ever. 4-0 win against Hull and East Yorkshire. Not only was it their biggest National League victory, it also saw history made when Lucas Veza-O'Brien became the first Manchester City player ever to score more than a single goal in a game. And that performance for me marked a real turning point. They didn't just defend, they dominated large spells and played with incredible control. Mason, you've no doubt watched a lot of Manchester City this season. Give me your opinions.
They've improved, like you said, they've improved by miles. Their confidence has skyrocketed. And the 2 first matches on Saturday were tough ones. Tough ones for any team. No matter who it is in the league, everyone struggles against them. Villa and Nottinghamshire are just 2 teams that are like, oh, we have to play them. Really, we have to play them. You don't really want to play them. You didn't have to, you won it. And then they went on after that to play Hull and hammered them 4-0. And I think that was the best, well, it is the best City's ever played. 4-0 is the biggest margin that they've ever won by. Before that, I don't think they ever scored more than 1 goal in a match, which is, saying that, it sounds quite odd to say considering that they just won 4-0. Then you move on to Saracens. Obviously, it's disappointing when you're on the roll of like having momentum to go and lose 2-0, which is very well done for Saracens, and 2 unfortunate mistakes late in the game, from what I've been told. And then they went and bounced back against Forest and went and got the comeback in the second half, which is very well done.
David, give me your thoughts on Manchester City.
I mean, there's a reason why they've been voted Team of the Weekend. They're so compact. They're so composed. Jay Pixton at the back, such a calming presence to whichever middleman's in front of him, predominantly Seb Spink, but he is there's a reason why he's in the fantasy team of the weekend in the starting four. I'm very good mates with him. He's on the England RATP for a reason. He is one of the most mature, collected, calm, composed goalkeepers there is on the market. He is a person where you may go 1-0 down, but he'll keep motivating you on, say, go on, we go again. He keeps going on saying, we can actually do this. He's the belief behind that squad. He is, in my opinion, the shining light when it comes to that Man City squad. You then have other players such as James Simpson and his ability to find a gap in any corner of the goal and finish it with absolute power and precision. And then you have Lucas O'Brien securing 2 or 3 more goals this weekend for Man City, adding to his goal tally for the season. And then you have the Spink twins, who have that telepathic understanding of each other, knowing where they're going to be at any time on the pitch, and showing why they deserve to play at National League football. And also, I think one of the biggest reasons why there's been such a large upgrade in this Manchester City squad is their upgrade from equalisers to strike forces. It may not sound from an onlooker's perspective such a large difference, or they're roughly the same share. They're really, I promise you, they're not. From switching myself from an equaliser to a strike force at the beginning of last season, the difference in quality of everything when it comes to the strike force, the power, the precision, the ability, the reactivity, is just uncomparable to any chair. And I'm not surprised that they've improved so much, because they've got better equipment at their disposal.
Mace, you've played in a bullet as well, haven't you?
No, not a bullet. I've only played in an equaliser, but for a very short time.
Sorry, equaliser. How did you find the difference going from an equaliser, however short, to now playing in a strike force? Because to David's point, it does make a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it hits the ball a lot harder, I think, personally. And it's so much more explosive when you start moving. I think it's a better chair as well. That's why you have like the fan on it and stuff, which I don't know if you do on an equaliser, you might do, but I don't know if an equaliser has a fan. And I was very happy when I moved into one, because David moved into one at the same time as me, and I was like, yay, we get to do it at the same time and see what it was like.
Yeah, well, as to your point, David, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing this big increase in levels. I think certainly game week 2, you've got Jay Pixton, you've got Sebastian and Oscar Spink, and you've got James Simpson. All 4 of them had transitioned into strike forces in either game week 1 or game week 2. But talking beyond the equipment, there is a clear maturity about them now, and central to that is Jay Pixton. He is the anchor. He is the defensive brain of the team. He sets the tone, and when he plays, everyone else grows in confidence. Oscar and Sebastian Spink were brilliant as well, maturing every weekend, and they're learning how to influence games in different ways, whether that's pressing kind of wider channels or manipulating the angles or exploiting loose balls in transition. James Simpson, Kareem Ali, Lucas O'Brien gave them real purpose and real quality in the wide channels too, something that hasn't always been the case. They've been very reliant on James Simpson in seasons gone by to get them goals, but now there's other reliable options to put the ball in the net. And if we're looking at their results, that GBG Saracens one stands out because, yes, it was a 2-0 defeat, but it came from a lapse in concentration, a rare lapse in concentration from Jay. And then they were really chasing that game. But what impressed me most is how City didn't let that define their weekend. They responded instantly by beating Nottingham Forest. Again, handling those fine margins brilliantly and showing belief rather than frustration. Overall, they finished game week 2 with 8 points in the standings, and that's a huge success for them because for me, I'd love to get your points. The target for the opening 2 weekends of the season was twofold. Maximise points while Jay Pixton is available. It's widely known that he will likely miss game weeks 3, 4 and 5, which will be absolutely huge for them. And also try, if and where possible, to upskill another player to anchor that system when he's not there. And I suspect that responsibility will shift towards Oscar Spink as the season progresses. And if they can execute that pivot smoothly, as in what Jay Pixton and Seb or Oscar Spink currently have, I think they'll be absolutely fine. But it's a big question mark. What do you think about that, David?
100%. The absence of Jay Pixton will be absolutely huge in this season. Oscar, I have heard, is being upskilled. He is being trained to fulfill that role, that void that will be left by Jay Pixton. And I think although they won't obviously be as strong as they're missing their star player, but they won't be bad. They won't be suffering as bad as we all thought, because these players, they are skillful, they are young, they are talented, and they are raw. They can be taught, they can be maneuvered in a way, and to be able to make Man City a functional, a goal scoring and well defending side when it comes to the Championship. And I believe that this season they will be well clear of relegation.
Yeah, looking ahead to game week 3, it's a fairly brutal fixture list. West Bromwich Albion Baggies, Nottinghamshire, Norwich City, Leeds Dynamos. They'll likely be underdogs in all 4. But if they can get any points from that weekend, they'll be well on course to stay clear of the bottom 3. Let's progress to West Bromwich Albion Baggies in 8th. And I'd describe their weekend as a mix of huge positives and really frustrating missed opportunities. I probably think is a fair assessment. There was a lot to like, but also plenty they'll want to improve on. They opened with a narrow 2-1 defeat to Altrincham on Saturday morning, and it felt like a game that could have swung either way, but the response was outstanding. A brilliant 4-1 win over GBG Saracens, and the headline story was Noah Stevenson-Lee. A hat-trick for him, the creativity, the leadership, the confidence to run the game. He absolutely lit up the court, and at just 14 years of age, he's already showing the traits of a future star. He fully deserved his Swizzle Standout Player of the Weekend award. And when we're talking about central players, young central players making that step up to National League level, Tommy Mickelson, Avery Bazin-Ball, to mention you two as well, he is right in that top bracket, don't you think?
100%. I think he is so young, but such high caliber of play that he can bring to that squad. He is, as I've said about multiple people on this podcast so far, the heartbeat, the ticking clock of Baggies. He's the one that makes the chances, that scores the goals. He can do it. He can do anything. He can play the most beautiful ball to his wingers to finish off. He can be the one having the ball played to and finishing off himself. He is fully deserved of that stand-up player of the weekend, and I believe that he the stand-up player of the weekend shouldn't have gone to anyone else because he is such a high performer.
Yeah, having processed the votes, he was the clear standout in terms of winner. Second was joint between Tanvir Hussain and Jay Pixton. But when you're talking about some top players, and it being Noah Stevenson's Lee, only his second ever National League weekend, it's incredibly impressive. Mason, you played against Noah and West Bromwich Albion Baggies on that Saturday morning. You actually have bragging rights over them. How did you find that? Because no doubt you came across him in the centre.
He's such a physical player, so difficult to play against. And you sort of think, like, as David said, he is like the turning wheel in that squad. 100% without a doubt. He is like, he creates everything in that middle. He's such a good young player as well. And I really did actually struggle against him in the middle. Because you think you get around him and then he's back. And he'll drive me back up the court. And it's like, wow, he's strong. And I didn't really expect it because I don't remember, I haven't played him before in the middle. So I didn't really know what to expect. And it stunned me. I really can't lie, it stunned me. And he's fully deserving of the outstanding player of the weekend.
Yeah, if we go back to their results, Sunday morning, their momentum stalled slightly. They lost 3-0 to Teesside Steel. Oscar Mulgrew was unplayable in that one, scoring a hat-trick. The Baggies just simply couldn't get out of second gear. And then came Norwich City, a match that will really hurt them. They were 1-0 up through Jack Gorder. They looked in control, but inexperience and a little bit of naivety cost them, with Jacob Edwards securing a brace, with the winner being very late on. So it just slipped away from them. And it'll be incredibly tough to swallow, but I've got to praise the way they reacted. They didn't sulk, they didn't carry it into the next match. Instead, they produced a superb 4-2 win over Nottingham Forest to close the weekend, with Noah once again running the show. And for me, that's where Dave Lewis and Matt Gilbert deserve credit. They've clearly settled on Noah as the central player, with Amy Sherman behind him. And that decision has brought stability. After game week 1, they were rotating central pairings and it was stopping them from building momentum. But now they look far more structured. Out wide, they're still rotating to find the right blend, and that's absolutely fine. Let the players compete for them spots, but having a little bit of continuity in the centre is clearly giving them a platform to build upon. David, you've had many different pairings in the National League, but I think it's fair to say that your best football comes when you've got a solid presence, the same player sitting behind you, certainly when you've played in the centre. Do you think there is a lot of value with settling on one pairing in the middle?
I've said it from the beginning of the time that I've played middle, in the fact that you have to have the same defensive setup. It's like in regular football, you wouldn't often change your goalkeeper, in the fact that you want to keep a consistency within the squad, a common flow of what is to be expected, and that a constant pairing between the middleman and the goalkeeper builds that bond, that relationship, to be able to trust each other, to know where each other are going to be at what point, how to defend it, who goes where, when do we drop deep, when does someone press. It's a very complicated relationship that takes a long time to build, and by the same pairing playing with each other for a longer period of time, it can only help, and it only increases that bond and that shared consistency and ability to be defensively solid.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's why you're seeing Baggies really push on now. And I don't suspect that they will change that. I think it will be Amy Sherman and Noah Stevenson-Lee for the majority of their games. And then it's just about how the other players in Jack Westmoreland, Jack Gorder, Lewis Marshall, Sam Swingler and others, how they slot in to that system. Just on Sam Swingler, I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit as well. He settled into National League life superbly and looks completely at home at this level. And if we look ahead to game week 3, Saturday is huge. On paper, they face GBG Saracens, Manchester City and Nottingham Forest, 3 games where they'll expect to be competitive, and you wouldn't rule out 9 points if they hit form. If Manchester City are without Jay Pixton, or if Saracens can't carry over momentum, Baggies will massively fancy their chances. Sunday, however, is tougher. Villa, Rockets, Lions and Manchester United. But if Baggies want to be in that conversation for 5th, 6th or maybe even higher, these are the games where they need to show they can cause problems for the teams above them. And based on what we've seen, there's absolutely no reason why they can't do that. So congratulations to West Bromwich Albion Baggies. A great weekend overall. In 7th place, we have Manchester United, and I can see Mr. D's face in front of me. It's not somewhere where he would want to be, with some sort of promotion aspirations prior to the season kicking off. And I think the headline is simple. It just isn't quite clicking yet. And as we record this, I've just had a text from Jeff Lewis, the chief statistician, and he's told me that Manchester United have never drawn 4 consecutive matches before, ever in their history. But that was the case in game week 2. And I said it across the weekend, and I'll stand by it. If there was betting odds on United before each kickoff, 0-0 would be the overwhelming favourite. Defensively, you're outstanding, compact, structured, disciplined. But going forward, something isn't weaving together. It was 0-0 against Teesside Steel, which is not a bad result at all. Teesside are one of the strongest sides in the division. 1-1 against Norwich is probably one that will feel like 2 points dropped. And had they taken their chances, they would have found the winner in the 3 points. Then Nottinghamshire, again, the same pattern, strong defensively, but no real intent to force the issue or try to win the game, which is not necessarily a disgrace against the league leaders. And then the game that I'm sure you two can analyse and unpack in a lot of detail with Manchester United and Altrincham. David, you're the perfect person to ask. Why isn't it clicking for Manchester United? You've got the quality across the squad. What's preventing that attacking spark right now?
There's multiple reasons, I believe, in this. I think, in my opinion anyway, feel free to disagree with me, I think we are the second most defensively solid side in the league. We are the second best defence in the league, in my opinion. The stats may not say it, but I think we only conceded 1 goal this weekend, and that was from a penalty against really, from a whole weekend where we've had really tough oppositions to face. The issue that I think is very prevalent in the squad is that we don't have a clear, defined goal scorer. We're creating chances, we're creating build-up, but we don't have that characteristic in our squad where we have that person that can slot a ball away 9 times out of 10 if they're given a ball to put away. And that's no disrespect to any of the squad members because they're all great players and they're all great people. And I can say it myself as well, I'm not a good finisher. And I personally don't think I'm very good when it comes to putting the ball into the back of the net. But I think we lack. I think what people are also seeing is that it's 4 draws when people are seeing it's 4 out of 12 points. When if you look at our weekend, it's a really, really tough weekend. Teesside Steel, we did a lot of preparation for that game. Many Zoom meetings discussing how we're going to prep for this game, how we're going to decide to set up. And it was difficult, but we came through with a point. We said at the beginning of the game, we'll take a point. Obviously, we want to go for 3, but we start with a point, we take a point. Norwich game, however, it's a very different story. In my opinion, we should have won that game. And I'll say it to anyone, I think I was very disappointed after the game not to win. And after the game, I immediately spoke to you, Ryan, and said how frustrated I was. And we were poor in that game. We were really, really poor. And it frustrates me because I know how good the squad is. I know what we can achieve. And I feel like we're just not crumbling, but we're not showing what we can. On Sunday, however, Nottinghamshire, we always knew that was going to be a different story. We came into the day saying, basically, that it's very undeserved. I think it's a very common opinion in the league that Nottinghamshire shouldn't be in this league and that they're too good for this league. And we came in saying, right, let's test ourselves, see how we can play against a Premiership side. And in my opinion, I thought we did very well defensively. Had a couple of chances from set pieces, which in my opinion is something that we need to work on a bit. And we were very defensively solid. A couple of scares, don't get me wrong, but we kept very compact and very calm presence. Finally, the game against Altrincham, probably the most feisty game I think I've ever played in. The atmosphere was absolutely raucous. Literally every single kick in, both sides screaming, "It's our ball! It's our ball!" Every single decision that went either way was challenged by both teams. It was a proper derby and it was a proper game, and we knew that Altrincham were going to be up for it. Obviously, they're knowing that. I remember from my time at Sale, we were always hyped up for that match saying, go on, let's beat Man United, let's beat them, our noisy neighbours. And and it was a very tough game. And me and Mason have spoken about this afterwards, and he basically said the aims of Altrincham in that game weren't to necessarily win, but just to lock Man United down. And I think the problem is, if we want to compete as a promoted side, we need to beat the teams around us. We don't need to draw against the teams around us. We need to beat them. And I think that we've got 2 or 3 months now. We have time to regroup, prepare, possibly maybe see some January action. I'm not sure, but hopefully we can come back stronger and better in February.
I always like it when Manchester United and Altrincham play one another because you're 2 clubs that are intrinsically linked through setup, through history, pathways, friendships, former players. There's always that kind of unspoken battle for bragging rights. Last season, Sale United finished above Manchester United. It's clearly something both sides are chasing. Mason, give me your perspective on it. How did you view that game against Manchester United?
We sort of viewed it as a game that we know we could have been up for, but we chose as Manchester United have wanted more than us. we were the underdogs, and he was like, we can go out there and think really anything about how we play, and just go out there, be the dominant side for as long as we can, try and keep the ball in Manchester United's half, keep possession, get kick-ins in their half, and if we can, nick a goal to win 1-0. And that was mostly the aim for the match. We knew that with the defence, we weren't going to be able to drive it in, like we have done against some other teams. We knew that wasn't going to be the case, because their defence is some of the best in the league, and I'll admit that as well. It is some of the best in the league. And attacking-wise, just they had the chances, but like David went over, the finisher just lacks just a tiny little bit. Last second, like when you just have that moment where you're like, oh, you can score here, and it's just on the last moment just lacks, which isn't really what you need if you want to go up. And we were benefiting off that because then it means that we weren't really under as much pressure in attack, and we could drive up the field and get the ball and more possession for us.
Yeah, I think when I look at Manchester United, the ingredients are there. Laura Evans has been one of the standout additions of the entire championship. She's calm, she's composed, she makes the right decisions. David, you've settled in really well since joining from Sale United, or now Altrincham. And Josh Slack, well, everyone knows how highly I rate him. He's a brilliant player, offers something very few players can replicate. Sam Taylor and Shannon Smith have been steadily improving their attacking output across the last few seasons. The individual profiles are strong. You just want to see that translated into more consistent attacking pressure. Defensively, you're excellent. As you've highlighted, one conceded all weekend. And only 4 across the season. I think only 3 other teams can boast a better or comparable defensive record, and that is Villa, Rockets, Lions, Nottinghamshire, and Teesside, I believe. So, yeah, there's structure, there's application, but the goals for column is the concern. 1 goal in 4 games isn't sustainable if you want to be part of that upper pack challenging for promotion. Looking ahead to Gameweek 3, the challenges increase. Villa, Rockets, Lions, Nottingham Forest, Norwich City, GBG Saracens, and West Bromwich Albion Baggies as a 5-game weekend with a real mix, some genuine tests, some opportunities to make up ground. The big question now for the squad, David, and maybe you can or can't answer these, is the intention. Are United still targeting a top 2 finish, a playoff push, or is the goal to kind of stay comfortable within the middle pack and build together, build collectively? Or is the belief that you can really mount a promotion challenge still? I don't know.
Obviously the aim is still going to be promotion, but I think the aims have slightly shifted from, say, automatic to now playoff promotion, because as Pete Taylor rightly said, we are still in the pack. We are from my opinion, we are at the bottom of the pack, but we are still in the pack. If we can get our goal scoring back to where it belongs and where it needs to be, I'm sure we'll be okay. And that 3rd place playoff spot will be very highly contested between I think personally, in my opinion, Nottinghamshire and Villa are going to run away with the automatic playoff spots. And I think automatic Premiership spots. And I think the playoff spots will be contested between us, Leeds, and Teesside, which will be a very tough battle to win. But as we've been reminded constantly, we've still got over half the season left. And if we go on a late title charge, even though we've had four draws recently, we are 6 games unbeaten, to be fair. And I know 4 draws isn't ideal, but unbeaten is unbeaten. I think we can build on it. We can start scoring goals. We can start beating some of the bigger teams, taking points off them, and we can progress to be able to, in my opinion, hopefully start making a late promotion charge.
Do you go into games saying we want to win this?
Every
In
time.
a tactical sense, going, let's attack this game. Is it more on stuff that you're doing wrong or the opposition's doing right?
Every single time we go into a game, we want to win. No matter who we face, no matter if it's Nottinghamshire or if it's Hull, we want to win every single time, without fail. We could face Aspire, we could face Teesside first team. We'd want to win, and it's a mix of both really. What are their weaknesses? How can we capitalise on it? What are we in the halftime team talk is often, what can we do better? What was our coach spotted in their tactical weaknesses, and how can we improve as the game goes on? And I think I believe we can still do it. I think, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy. It will not be easy, but there's 12 games left. There is still a lot of points up for grab, and 13 games left for us. There's a lot of points up for grab, and I believe that we can do it.
Fascinated to see how it plays out. Now let's progress on to Altrincham in 6th place, and once again another incredibly strong weekend. I've said many times they're my favourite team to watch, and they continue to show everyone exactly why. I'm glad I've got you both on the podcast to discuss this, because for me there is that competitive edge between United and Altrincham. And it's clear talking to you both that you desperately want to win against one another. And I know, David, it will hurt you looking at those standings and seeing Altrincham one position above you. But on the flip side, you was in their position last season, looking down at Manchester United. You've made that fairly unique switch from one to the other. If we look at their results, they opened the weekend with an excellent 2-1 win over West Bromwich Albion Baggies. Goals from yourself, Mason, and Jack Hassan. They set the tone perfectly. A big result that gave you early momentum ahead of that big game against Teesside Steel. And that was just a crazy game. A crazy game. I've watched many games at championship level, and there was 3 goals and a red card in the first 5 minutes. Mason, talk to me about that fixture, because I know you're incredibly disappointed with how things played out. You received that red card as a result of leaving the court in prevention of a clear goal scoring opportunity. And not only that was it a 1-game suspension, it was also a penalty which was dispatched by them. And from that point on, your side just never really found a way to get back into it.
Yeah, it's tough, very tough. And when you're in the position where you've just lost your centre player to a red card, and you're against a top 4 team who's been beating everyone quite comfortably, it's obviously gonna affect you. It's not gonna make it an easier game, is it? And going down to 3 players isn't ideal. If I was to look back, I probably would have just let the goal in and just avoided the red card. But I was half oblivious to the rule when it happened, and I knew you could get a red card for it. And the worst part was I was in reverse and I couldn't see the line. So I was like, am I behind the line? Am I in front? I didn't know. Which is frustrating to say. Because I was really looking forward to play in the match. And I thought we win it. Because they scored off kick-off and then we replied back with an unlucky own goal by Isaac Murray off a set piece. And then it happened. So, yeah. And then Seaside just got the job done. But that second half in that match, I thought, for 3 people on the pitch, we were outstanding. We were superb. From watching on back at the room, we were brilliant. To go 20 minutes without conceding against the top 14, we're down to 3 men, is just crazy.
Yeah, I completely agree. You showed so much resilience. Jake Hudson in particular led superbly at the back. Joey Levine supported brilliantly, and Jack Hassan kept you competitive throughout. And the fact that the second half was 0-0 is a testament to the organisation and the mentality. I'll throw to you first, Mason. Talk to me about Jake Hudson, because we speak about continuity of central pairings and how a lot of teams build their success off whoever they play in the middle. How much confidence does it give you knowing that Jake Hudson is behind you?
So much. It's such a boost. Especially even being the player coach role. I know if I'm doing something wrong, I can turn around and go to him when there's a break in the game and I go, Jake, I feel like something's not like working here. What's wrong? Is there anything I can change? Just being able to do that on the pitch, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Instead of having to go to the sideline and ask the coach, being able to just go back to my net, say off a goal kick or a kick in, and ask him, what am I doing wrong? And he'll tell me straight away. He's not afraid to tell his players. That's what I like about him. He'll tell them straight up. And he's also such an experienced, well-seasoned goalkeeper. He keeps the ball out when he needs to, and he's a superb shot stopper.
Yeah, I completely agree. On Sunday, it was a brilliant 4-1 win against Hull and East Yorkshire. Mason back on the score sheet. Jack Johnson returning, full of positives. And then the one we've already spoken about, that United derby, which ended 0-0. Now to you, David, because you're in a unique position. You know this team so well, having left them in the off-season. The player I want you to focus on and talk about is Jack Hassan, because he's just been announced in the fantasy team of the weekend. How important is he to Altrincham? And I like to use this podcast as an opportunity to shine a light on him, because he's so underrated, isn't he?
There's honestly, he is one of the best quality players I've ever played with. The first National League game I played, it was with him in the middle, in the 21-22 season, and he was a captain. He's been a captain for me all the time that I was at what was known then as Sale United, and he was a role model to aspire to. And I actually knew Jack before I actually got into Powerchair Football, because our parents were family friends, and from a young age he was just like, he was a role model to aspire to become and shape who you are as a person. And on and off the court, I've shared a great experience with him. Really frustrating because in the off season we were meant to move up together, and unfortunately he was asked to stay down in the Altrincham team because of the PF1 PF2 issue. And for me, I found that a real shame because I thoroughly enjoy playing with Jack Hassan. He has a position, I call it a half back, where he is a winger, but he drops deep, so you can get a flick off to him when you're in the middle, and we can be able to play the ball from there. And I think he's such a great person, a great player, very composed, got a great finish on him, and is fully deserved of that Fantasy Team of the Week feature.
Yeah, I completely agree. On to you now, Mace. I want to ask you about Jack Johnson. How impressed have you been with his development so far? Because he missed the Saturday's round of fixtures, which was a shame. But in total, he's probably played, 6 games so far, and already looks like one of the brightest talents in the country.
Yeah, he's such a good player, and even though for his age and he's new to the squad, he drives the team along. In the team talk, he's like, "Come on, let's do this," and he's always the one that gets the pulse raising. I remember in the Manchester United game when he was the one who went hard in every battle, nearly got himself a yellow card for doing it, and put himself in quite a bit of danger. But besides that, he was charging the team on, he was rallying us on, gave us all confidence, and it probably led to us keeping that game a draw because we all felt in the mood, we all had adrenaline pumping, and we all went for it. And he's so good when you give him that time, that final pass. He really is good. He needs to, he has stuff to work on, which is what we're doing. And it's very encouraging for himself as well. He should be very happy about how many games he's played and what he's done already.
Yeah, completely agree. There's an incredible young talent there, and nothing pleases me more than watching regional league players take that step up to National League and just slot in seamlessly. You two have done it at a certain stage, and there's so many that we've spoken about and that we will speak about in the remaining teams in this episode, where others have replicated exactly what Jack has done. Looking ahead for Altrincham, game week 3, your biggest test yet. Norwich City, Teesside Steel, Nottinghamshire and Leeds Dynamos. 4 teams, 4 very different tactical setups, but it will be just a perfect measure of how far this Altrincham side can go. So really excited to see how you fare. In 5th, we have, just check the table, Leeds Dynamos. And like a few teams this weekend, their story splits cleanly into 2 halves. Saturday was outstanding. 3 wins from 3, confident football, a clear identity in the way they play. I think it's fair to say they're the only side in the division who genuinely tries to play a full 4-out system, especially when Jack Humphreys wears the goalkeeper shirt. He's so brave in advancing up the court to support his teammates and look to link the play, set the tempo. Wins over GW2 Saracens, Nottingham Forest and Norwich City came with real control. Liam Chadwick had a huge weekend. We all know how strong he is defensively, and the rotating wide players did their job really well. There's still a bit of figuring out to do in terms of the best pairing between Harrison Taylor, Rhys Stewart, Hayden Lambert, Jack McNaughton, but the options are there and the versatility will help them later in the season. David, what do you make of Leeds? They're clearly trying to play football in a really exciting way.
I think they are one of the most exciting teams in the league. I think they're trying to base their football off their Premiership sister club, Leeds PFC, in that 4-out system. And I think obviously that 4-out system comes with risks, but it also comes with very high rewards, with such as overloads in attack. I think Liam Chadwick, such a central player to their system. Harrison Taylor has added that new dimension from a winger's perspective to be able to give the service back to Liam Chadwick. Players such as Jack Humphreys provide that stability and that anchor in the lead squad, and show why they are such a strong Championship side, pushing for a promotion spot. And although Sunday didn't go quite as planned, with having 3 games and only winning one of them, they had a really, really tough Sunday facing Norwich, Villa, and Nottinghamshire. But there are positives. They did pick up 9 points from the weekend, total from a 15-point possible weekend. And they are the first team to score against Nottinghamshire this season, originally taking the lead against them. And I think it's testament to how good they are and how much of a threat it can be when they get the ball going.
Yeah, that Villa game, they just couldn't break them down. The game plan just didn't seem to click. Villa controlled the space, and once they'd got their opener, they almost sat back and invited Leeds onto them. And knowing that tendency to play a 4-out way, I think it's smart game management from Brad Bates' side, because they were just looking for the openings. They were looking for the gaps. They didn't need to overexert themselves, and that really frustrated Leeds. You could see. And I said on commentary that game could have gone on for 2 hours, and Leeds still might not have found a way through. Villa were that comfortable. The Nottinghamshire game, one of the strangest matches I've ever watched. Leeds took the lead after a rare miscommunication and mistake at the back from Matt Hadfield, which is incredibly uncharacteristic of him. And then it was just a catalogue of errors and strange decisions, which led to Nottinghamshire getting back into it. The equaliser came from Sam Langley, an indirect free kick that Leeds protested might not have fully crossed the line, but Jeff Lewis was right over it to make the decision. And then right at the end, the decisive moment, confusion around re-entry after a 2-on-1. I think Seb Copeland left the court to avoid a 2-on-1, which is now permitted within the laws of the game, but then re-entered without being allowed to from the referee. I think it's the first time it's ever been awarded or brought up at National League level. So there was a lot of confusion, and Jeff Lewis brought the teams together to communicate his decision. It was an indirect free kick, so you think, okay, let off for Leeds. And then Sam Langley just fired it off the back of Liam Chadwick's chair late on to secure the win. And you could see the look on the face of the Leeds Dynamo's players when they came off, that they had a victory snatched out their grasp. And they'll know they're better than what they showed. Mason, what did you make of Leeds in game week 2?
I think they were very good. One thing that I think I might have noticed, but I could be wrong. I didn't watch very many of Leeds' games after the first national weekend, but I can't remember whether this is correct or not. But I think the goalie took more of an attacking role in the second weekend, which might look to say that they're trying to do a different play style each weekend, which is something that I picked up. But besides that, the weekend that they had, the Sunday was very tough. The Saturday was obviously their easier day. It was like 2 weekends in one. They had 2 games where they're highly expected to win, and then 3 games where they were sort of like, we don't really know, draw or maybe a win for the other team. And it was like, and the Sunday they sort of played like they didn't really have much to play on, because they were expected to lose for 2 of the games, and they went out there, played the best that they could, nearly got a win against the league leaders, but struggled against Villa, which is, well, Villa are just a really good team this season. And I think the win against Norwich was really good from their point. Very, very good win for where they are in the table as well. Beating someone who's very close to them is good. Was a bit shaky near the end, I want to say, but he got the job done at the end of the day. No, I think overall it was a very, very good weekend for Leeds.
Yeah, something that I highlighted for Leeds Dynamos at the start of the season was their consistency. If they can ensure their consistency, they will be more competitive. If they're more competitive, there's no telling what they can do in the division. And it's a question I often ask myself. I'll throw it to you, David. Has this Dynamo squad, in its current state, with its current players, got what it takes to push for promotion, or do you think they may just fall short with a few better teams than them?
Well, from Man United's perspective, I would hope that they do fall off, of course, too, because obviously we want that playoff or promotion spot. But it's they have, I think, the problem with the Leeds, in my opinion, in previous seasons, they've been very inconsistent in their results. They've had some weekends where they've blown everyone out of the water, no matter who they face, and then other weekends where they can barely string 2 passes together. So it's if they want to push those promotion spots, they have to continue their current form, beat the teams around them, and climb the ladder.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. There's a lot to like. They're competitive, they're brave, and they're clearly not satisfied with just being solid. They're aiming higher, and they want to play good football, which I'm always an advocate for. Game week 3 offers a chance to build some real momentum. I think it's fair to say. Nottingham Forest, Hull and East Yorkshire, before playing Nottinghamshire again on the Saturday. 3 fixtures, 2 of them very winnable. Then Sunday brings Manchester City and Altrincham, 2 tough tactical matchups, 2 very good tests for this Leeds side. So yeah, we will see. Have they got what it takes to really push on? Let's now progress to 4th in the standings. We're nearly through it. And that is Teesside Steel. This is a team that continues to defy the usual patterns of the Championship. Their unbeaten league run now stretches to 26 games, a record for a continuous run in the division. What makes it even more unique is that across those 26 matches, they have never finished a single weekend inside the top 2. It speaks to their consistency, their structure, but also about the fine margins that have stopped them really pushing the teams above them. The draw column has absolutely killed them, as a player, David, that's experienced a very similar dilemma at the moment. Game week 2 was again very Teesside, controlled, competitive, composed, 2 wins, 2 draws, nothing overly flashy, but everything fairly effective. And they still are yet to lose a game this season. David, before I go further, how did you see Teesside's weekend? Do you look at them and think they're exactly where you expected them to be? Or do you feel they still need to find another level if we're to talk about them as a potential Premiership side?
I think I agree with the latter. Spencer, right? I think they are one of the best, most consistent sides in the Championship, but they need that next gear. They need that 4th player who can link up the play, and that's no disrespect to Tom Met. He's a great finisher, one of the top goal scorers in the league. But I sometimes find that the play in the final third breaks down, and we need to find that rhythm, that passing, that fluidity that is known in the Teesside first team. And I think teams this season, because of the pressure being labelled at the beginning of the season by many people as title winners, that pressure's almost pushed on them a bit. That's like, it's almost put an extra added weight of pressure on their shoulders. And I think it's a stage of learning where they need to learn how do we cope with people believing that we are the top dog. How do we cope going into games expected to win every single one, and how do we cope, and how do we show that we belong in the top division of Powerchair football, not just in England but in the world.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're so solid, they're so reliable, but you always feel there's another gear waiting to be unlocked. I did strongly caveat my prediction for Teesside winning the championship with Owen Swift's availability, because that hasn't been the case in game week 1 or game week 2. Without him, they're still a top level side, but they do lack that spark, that potency up top. And there was several missed chances that could have seen many of those draws shift to potential wins. If we break down their weekend, 0-0 with Manchester United, a 3-1 win over Altrincham, but as we've already stated, with the context of Mason's red card, that shifted the game completely. And had Mason stayed on the court, I think it would have been a very different result. A confident 3-0 win over West Bromwich Albion Baggies, and then another 0-0 draw against Nottinghamshire, the league leaders. And overall, it's a brilliant return, especially considering the quality of the opposition. When they click, the football is a joy to watch. It's precise, it's sharp, it's well timed, but there are moments where the tempo, the speed completely drops and the game becomes incredibly scrappy. And that's almost understandable when you consider the biggest hurdle they face is they only have 4 players available. They did in game week 1, they did in game week 2. So there is no ability to rotate, no tactical changes that can be made, no rest for any of the players. And it's a huge ask of them. Mason, obviously you wasn't on the court a great deal of time, but no doubt you've watched them in games last season and this. Give me your assessments on Teesside still.
They're a very tough side. Every side's a tough side, no matter who you look at. But they're a tough side that's at the top of the table, challenging for promotion, as been said. And this year, I just think they've gone back just a little bit. And I don't want to sort of. I say this saying where I call it second season syndrome, where a team sort of is superb for the first season, and you think, oh, look at this, they're gonna, and then you put the pressure on them. Are they gonna get promoted, or are they gonna win the league? And then they sort of don't fold under the pressure. They're still there, but they don't reach their expected heights that was expected of them, and they sort of drop a gear down. And I don't want to say, because we're early into the season still, I don't want to say they've sort of already done that, because they haven't. They're 4th in the league. They're not far off the top, but they have just took a step back from what their expectations were. And I think, again, the draws are going to come back to bite them.
Yeah, very potentially. If we look at it on an individual basis, there is so much talent. Isaac Murray doesn't get enough credit. Outstanding in that kind of defensive anchor role. Brave, discipline, does contribute in attack if and when the game state allows. Jamil Khan, in my opinion, is the best ball striker in the division. Quality at set pieces, and I think he already has 3 or 4 assists. Oscar Mulgrew, fantastic this weekend, as he was across the whole of last season. 7 goals and 4 assists he has to his name, so on double digits for goal contributions. And Thomas Met, he's a smart, composed finisher. And I said it on commentary several times, his role within that team is literally to put the ball in the net. One touch finishing across the line. He'll contribute very little in any other areas of the court, and that's something that's maybe hurting them a little bit. They need a little bit more versatility on the wing, someone who can contribute in defense and attack, and maybe rotate to give other players a break. If we look ahead to game week 3, they're still perfectly positioned. They've played 1 game fewer than the 3 sides above them, meaning a win there would put them, I think, a point or 2 behind league leaders. So they're still right in the mix. They play GBG Saracens, Altrincham, Hull and East Yorkshire, and Villa Rockets Lions. If Owen Swift is there, you could argue that they're favourites in all 4 fixtures. If not, they'll still compete, I have no doubt. But I really do think fatigue will become a factor. But a 26-game unbeaten run says everything you need to know. Teesside don't panic, they don't crumble, and they don't give anything away easily. They've set a bar for consistency now. It's about seeing whether they can take the next step and turn that consistency into a proper promotion push. Let's now progress on to Norwich City in 3rd. And just like after game week 1, they're right in the mix towards the top. An intriguing, consistent side. The table actually hasn't shifted a great deal from game week 1. But the story, the performances certainly have when we delve into it, as we are doing so here. For Norwich, they opened with a tight 1-0 win over Hull and East Yorkshire. Tom Burnett, again, the difference maker, a young superstar who has hit the National League stage at full speed. I love him as a wide player, can hit a ball so cleanly. 1-1 draw against Manchester United, as we've already discussed. David, one you're bitterly disappointed you didn't come away with 3 points from. And then Norwich suffered a 2-1 defeat to Leeds Dynamos, but they did round things off with a 2-1 victory over West Bromwich Albion Baggies. Across all 4 matches, I think for me what stands out is how compact and stubborn they are. Nobody beats them comfortably. Nobody blows them away. Norwich, for me, are the benchmark. Whenever you want to know where a team really is in terms of quality, form, or potential, I look at how they perform against Norwich City. David, you played against them. You did speak about them a little bit earlier, but what's your read on Norwich? Do you feel like it's a side that has the potential to challenge towards the top, or do you think they're just riding a little bit of a wave at the moment?
Interesting question, that, Ryan. I think I talked about our aims for 3rd place playoff, and I purposefully didn't include Norwich City in that conversation because I think although they are a very good, solid side in the league, I just don't think they quite have it. I don't think they've quite got the knack. Mike Coleman, in my opinion, not many players can get the ball off him very easily. He is one of the best dribblers in the league, and he is one of the most powerful players to play against, and he is very difficult to get the ball moving around him. Hannah Murgatroyd, one of the best dead ball set piece specialists in the league, can hit a ball with such power pace and precision. To
Can I
be-
just interrupt you there? I'm so glad you said that because I watched several of their games in game week 2, and she came up on a number of occasions to take free kicks or kick-ins high up the court, and every time she had responsibility, it was clean, it was accurate, it was inventive, and almost on every occasion it found the bumper of a teammate. But my question to them was they're not consistent with it. She takes maybe 20% of the kick-ins, and I can't quite understand why that she wouldn't have exclusive responsibility over every set piece they have.
I 100% agree with you, Ryan. I think her ability to be able to play a ball, she can see a gap through where no one else can see it, thread a needle where a needle can thread through, and it's honestly, when it comes off, it is beautiful to see and beautiful to watch the ball just slit through an entire squad straight through into their attacking winger where they've created a really good opportunity. And I think they need to utilise her more. Johan George, a very physical player, a very almost a conference player in my opinion. I think if he's playing well, when he's on his day, he is really, really he's got that ability to be able to control the pitch, to be able to make the game do as he says. But I thought when he's non-form, it can be a slightly different story. And with the up and coming young wingers in Jack Fulcher, Tom Burnett, and their new winger Jacob Edwards, they are a really, really strong, competitive squad, and they can, if they want to, depends how they set out. I think if they believe they can push for promotion, great, go for it. That's what I'm saying. But I think they are in the mix. They have got a reasonably interesting weekend next weekend, facing both Altrincham and Manchester United on the Saturday, and then City and Nottinghamshire on the Sunday. Would have been quite challenging, but if they believe they can pick up points, obviously we can prevent them picking up. Obviously, we want to prevent them picking up points, but if they believe they can do it, good luck to them.
Mace, give me your thoughts on Norwich because, to David's point, they are your first game in game week 3. Is that a fixture that you go into expecting 3 points from, or would you be happy to settle for a point against a current promotion chaser?
We're never happy to settle for a point, Ryan. We always want the 3 points. But when you look at it realistically, the 1 point's more realistic compared to the 3 points. When you're playing against a side who's just come down from the highest level in England and are looking to go back up again, it's not going to be an easy game. It never is. And it really will be a big challenge. And it does put weight on the shoulders because if we win that match, we set the bar for the rest of the weekend in one of our toughest weekends. The toughest weekend I've ever played in. I don't know about the other people in the club, but certainly toughest I've ever played in. So yeah, overall though, they are a very, very strong squad. They've got youth balanced with experience, and they're very good off set pieces, which I like.
Yeah, I often talk about momentum and how winning your first fixture of a weekend can really stand you in good stead for follow-up games, and more overarching, why I put so much importance on teams performing well in game week 2, knowing how much of a gap there was between this weekend and game week 3. If we're looking at the players of Norwich, to your point, David, Mike Coleman is a great player. He is the heartbeat. Dribbles the ball so well. There was a shift in Norwich's game in game week 2 compared to game week 1. Game week 1 saw them play a bit more expansive, attacking, exciting football. Game week 2 was more of what I've expected from them in seasons gone by. Stubborn, defensive, hard to break down. Johan George might have been their most important player in game week 2. He covers every inch of the court, never drops his intensity, and he rarely comes off. So they're relying on him for 40 minutes. And you can see he is playing with confidence. He is playing with maturity. Tom Burnett, there's not much more to add other than he's sensational. A clean strike of the ball. He's tactically mature for his age and already looking like one of the standout young talents in the championship. And I think he is a product of this next generation where players of his age are going straight into Strikeforce chairs. So they're so fearless and technically superb that excites me so much that the next generation will kind of follow a similar trend. If we look ahead to game week 3, Altrincham, Manchester United, Manchester City and Nottinghamshire, a really tough run. 4 teams who all have something to fight for. The big question is, can Norwich kick on another gear? Because there are several teams immediately below them in Leeds, Altrincham, Teesside, Steel, Manchester United, who'll be looking at that 3rd spot and thinking, we can take that. We are better than you. But for Norwich, if they can turn those tight games into wins, they'll remain where they are. If not that, then that playoff position becomes a real battle. So incredibly exciting. Our penultimate team in the standings, Villa, Rockets, Lions in 2nd. And for me, they were the standout team of game week 2. 5 matches, 4 wins and a draw, and an overall performance level that shows a group full of belief, full of rhythm, and there's a confidence about them that's spreading right across the squad. David, give me your thoughts on Villa. Have they got to be considered as genuine title contenders?
I think there's really, when you think of Villa, there's one name that you can associate with him, and he's been given the nickname on social media as Bagsman Tab, otherwise known as Tanbih Hussein, top goal scorer in the league, absolute demon in front of that, slots every chance that is put on a plate to him, and he is, and again another regional league player that's come up through the ranks to play in National League football, and is performing at the absolute highest standard. You know what it reminds me of so much? He reminds me of an Oscar Smedley in the fact that he's making such a big impact and being at the top of the stat chart, one of the stat charts, and really helping his side in the title charge. And yes, I believe they are title contenders. I think it will go down to the wire whether it's them or Nottinghamshire, because I think they'll get promoted, and I think both of them will get promoted again. I just think it's a question of, like last year, who's going to win it, GW2 or Mosslock, who's going to win it this year, Villa or Nottinghamshire. And again, to mention another player, Ellie Brown, making a National League debut, so solid in net on the substitutes bench in the fantasy team of the weekend. And I think she was so composed in front and had no fear, really. Obviously, she's in the Ireland development squad, and she played, or Northern Ireland development squad, and she played with such composure and really aided the exciting nature of the Villa Rocket squad. And obviously, you can't forget the main man, Nagelsmann Villas. From experience playing against him, you actually don't know what he's going to do next. You don't know whether he's going to go left, he's going to go right, he's going to drive at you. He's so powerful in his chair. Every hit, he goes about 10 yards from a dead ball. It's ridiculous to play against, and it's absolute nightmare. And the Villa squad would not be the same without any of those players. And I think they are good value for the title.
Mace, you've faced Villa Rockets, Lions, and Nagelsmann Villas. What do you think makes him so consistently effective?
I think just personally, the fact how he's an international player with international experience means he's playing against the top of the best in the world. The likes of Marcus Harrison in battles and John Bolden and your Chris Gordons and your Momo Galames of France and stuff like that. He's playing against players who are good in that role of battling. And I think it just makes him so unpredictable that he's learning off these players and sort of taking it into his own game. And it really is very good that he's doing that.
Yeah, Nagelsmann Villas continues to operate at a level that frankly wouldn't look out of place in the Premiership. He's central to everything they do in and out of possession. And if Villa are serious about securing one of those 2 automatic promotion spots or even challenging for the title, Naglis will be absolutely central to that. And it's worth noting as well, this is not even his natural position. He's a winger. He's an attacking wide player. But he's playing in the centre. He's had to adapt his game to suit and fit the squad. And he's still performing at a ridiculously high level. If they bring Mason Hindley back into this squad, I'm not quite sure what the circumstances are around Mason Hindley's absence. Villa will be unstoppable because he is such a strong central player and Naglis is such a world-leading wide player. If you put him in his natural position, his numbers will skyrocket as they did last year. So yeah, you won't find a bigger fan of Naglis than me.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. In my opinion, I think Naglis is the best winger outside England and France. I've said it before, and I think I can't think of a better player outside England and France in the rest of Europe than Nagelsmann Villas, because he is so controlling of the game and he's got such a cool mannerism about him, and I think he is so good.
I had this debate recently with a few players to talk about we had to name our top 5 or 10 wingers in the Premiership, and I won't delve into them now because that's maybe something for another episode. But if Naglis was in the Premiership, he would be right in that conversation. He would be probably top 5, top 10 winger. And I don't disagree with you at all. He is a world leading player, and outside England and outside some players that compete with France and America, he is right up there as one of the best on the planet. And you can see what he does for Villa Rockets Lions. If we talk about a Northern Ireland international, certainly at development level, Ellie Brown, as already mentioned, stepped up to the National League for the very first time and looked like she's been here for years. She was voted the Swizzles Unsung Hero of the weekend and very much deserving of that accolade. Composed, assured, defensively switched on, seamlessly integrated. And I think she had only met the wider squad on Friday evening, I believe. So she had hours to acclimatise to the people and players around her, and did it absolutely effortlessly. And she was absolutely brilliant. She even contributed in attack with goals and assists as well. So if that's just the beginning of her National League journey, there's no telling what she can do in game weeks 3, 4 and 5. I really want to highlight Kean Collins because we are seeing a version of him that we've never quite seen before. Never at his time with Baggies. He's playing with confidence, belief and such clarity in his decision making. He has 11 assists already, division leading. And he looks like he's really enjoying his football. But to your point, David, Bagsman Tan, I was challenged to use that term, that title on commentary, and I managed to squeeze it in when he scored against Leeds Dynamos, I believe. He's one of the cleanest strikers of the ball in the entire division. A regional league player stepping up to National League for the very first time, scoring 14 goals across his first 2 National League weekends. That puts him in extremely rare company. Only 4 players in National League history have scored as many or more in their first ever 2 National League weekends. Would you two hazard a guess as to who has scored more in their first 2 National League weekends?
Oh, I'm going to go for a guess. Is it Liam Ashton?
You've gone for Liam Ashton. Any sort of guesses, Mace?
No, I don't know very much about the history, so
No, that's absolutely fine. I would have struggled to come up with names. That's why I fall back on my safety net, which is Jeff Lewis. Marcus Harrison scored 24, but in a very, very different era of Powerchair football. If we go in modern times, only Valentino Zegarelli has managed to top him with 16 goals when he joined West Bromwich Albion in 23-24. What a sensational player he is. If we're looking at players that have matched that accolade, Jordan Duke for Everton, I believe, and James Mason for Brighton in 21-22. But Tanvir Hussain joins an elite list with 14, and he's done it in the modern era of National League when conditions where every game is tight, tactical, physically demanding, where all the players or most of the players are in strike forces or equalisers. So it's seriously impressive. And as already mentioned, he was only a couple of votes away from securing the standout player of the weekend. And if this is just the start of his National League journey, there's no telling what he can do in the coming weekends and the coming years ahead. If we look at Villa Rockets Lions game week 3, they open against yourself, Manchester United. That's going to be a great game, David. You looking forward to that one?
Well, I mean, we need to avenge ourselves from last time. We lost 2-1 from I admit, a stupid mistake from me. But we need to start picking up points, and they obviously want to continue their title charge. So we both got stick in the game, and hopefully it will provide an entertaining match, and hopefully not another 0-0.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Following that, they play Hull and East Yorkshire and West Bromwich Albion Baggies before ending against Teesside Steel. So that, again, 2 incredible games that bookend their weekend, but incredibly excited to see what they can do. And anytime I get to watch Naglis Villas and Co. is a good day. Let's now progress on to Nottinghamshire in first, top of the table heading into the Christmas break, unbeaten and statistically still the strongest side in the division. But I think it's fair to say game week 2 didn't quite hit the same heights as game week 1. After scoring 23 goals without reply in their opening 4 fixtures, you could be forgiven for assuming they'd simply continue in that same free-flowing rhythm. The turnaround between weekends was so short. Everything pointed towards another comprehensive showing, but Saturday told a different story. They opened with a narrow 1-0 win over Manchester City, solid but unspectacular. That then followed a tight 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest. Professional results. Yes, but not the same fluid, relentless Nottinghamshire we saw in the first weekend. Mason, I'm sure you watched Nottinghamshire across the weekend. Why do you think it just didn't click for them?
I just think, I don't really know. I think personally, because teams then now could watch games back and see how it is, then that might be the reason why.
What's your assessment, David?
I think they've had not an easy run in for the first game week or two, but I wouldn't exactly say that they've faced a promotion charged team. And I think in this second game weekend, they've really had some challenges, and they've done reasonably well with their challenges. They faced us, where they got a 0-0 draw, which we were the underdogs, and again we were over the moon with that 0-0 draw against a really top side. Then they faced Leeds. Then they faced Teesside, another 0-0 draw, in which they again another 0-0 draw, and they played it was actually a really boring game, that, from what I remember. They stumped each other, and the final game against Leeds, obviously it went 1-0 down from a rare mistake from Matt Hadfield, but then came back to win 2-1, and that's what a real side is made of.
Yeah, you said it was a challenging game against Teesside Steel. I did watch it. I did commentate on it. It was one of the most frustrating games of football I have ever watched. It really was. I had such high expectations for that fixture in terms of the teams and the individuals, but nothing seemed to click for either of the two teams, and that led to a lot of frustration. If we look at the individuals, they weren't at their usual level. I don't think Adam Langley had his usual sharpness. Sam Langley wasn't quite the talisman he was in Game Week 1, where he stormed the player of the weekend vote. And as already mentioned, Kieran Wade, 9 goals after the opening weekend, couldn't add to his tally. Matt Hadfield, normally one of the most dependable goalkeepers, presences in the league, had a few uncharacteristic moments that nearly cost them. And Leighton G wasn't available on Saturday's fixtures, which played into their lack of form. David, you know these players, you watch a lot of football. Do you think it was a collective dip, or just one of those weekends that everyone is allowed where it just doesn't quite connect?
I think it was just one of their weekends where everyone's going to have those weekends where they just struggle, and that it doesn't quite work together. But I still think they've got it to win the title.
I know, I agree. But if we want perspective, despite all of that, they're still unbeaten. And one of my Jeff the Ref stats, Nottinghamshire conceded their first goal of the season in their 9th match. Their run of 8 consecutive clean sheets from the start of a championship season is the joint second best ever. And every single team that has ever started a championship campaign with 6 or more clean sheets has gone on to be promoted. So it's a good omen that I'm sure they'll want to hold on to. And that's the consistency that wins titles. But for me, Nottinghamshire remain the team to beat. Still incredibly hard to score against, but oddly missing that one extra spark in Gameweek 2 that could turn them from title favourites into title inevitables. Mason, one final question for you. Do you think we're being too harsh on Nottinghamshire, or are these just the standards they now have to uphold if they want to dominate the league?
I think these are just the standards that they have to uphold, really. And it's quite rough to say that it is, but you look back a few seasons ago, you were fourth in the Premiership, and now they're back down in the league below, and you need to go straight back up to hold the reputation. So it is just the standards that have been set for them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that wraps up episode 39 of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football Podcast, powered by MK Batter. It's a fantastic game week 2 in the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Championship. A massive thank you, as always, to everyone tuning in, and to MK Battery for their ongoing partnership and commitment to powering this podcast and the National League streaming as a whole. Game week 3 of the competition is 14th and 15th of February, so make sure you mark that in your calendars. Thank you all. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mason.